Hello and welcome to the Heat Check podcast, Miami Herald's Miami Heat podcast. I'm David Wilson. I'm joined, as always, on the other line by Anthony Chiang, our Heat beat writer here at the Herald. Anthony, you got to make shots.
It's a make or miss league, David.
It's a make or miss
league. And
That's
it's a
what
make
they
or miss
say.
series, apparently.
It very much is. Heat. We're recording this just after midnight, after the Heat won Game 5 against the 76ers, taking really full control of this series. Again, that very briefly, there was 48 hours worth of panic there, I think, from Heat fans. I think it was deserved the way.
Heat Twitter was just running around all over the place, like panic.
Yeah, it's like that SpongeBob. Isn't there like a SpongeBob
Yeah.
gif where SpongeBob's like running around in circles? It was very much that. I think something's on fire in that gif. Yeah, I think it was deserved the way those two games in Philly went. Game 3, that was like as bad an offensive game as you'll kind of see in the playoffs at this stage of the postseason.
Yeah.
And then Game 4, all of a sudden James Harden turns back the clock and looks very much like James Harden circa 2019, 2018, hitting all those step back threes. My thought coming out of that game was probably an outlier, but there was, maybe he clicked. He's James Harden. He's he's a Hall of Famer, one of the 70. Was he on that NBA 75? He's definitely close to that list.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the 75 or so best players of all time. But on Tuesday night, the Heat just kicks the absolute crap out of the 76ers. A game that was really never close. I missed the first 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes of like real life game time, and by the time I sat down, I think the Heat were up. It was like 25-13 when I sat down, and it never really got any closer than that.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like last week we talked about how there really wasn't much to say. Like, it was just the Heat taking care of business.
Yeah.
I mean, this week there's more to talk about.
Yeah, a lot happened in the last however many hours.
Yeah. But Game 5 was almost like, again, the Heat taking care of business. It was just like the old formula of balanced attack, 7 guys in double digits. Their depth was on display with Kyle Lowry out. They used a 10-man rotation. You got Victor Oladipo giving you 13 points off the bench. You got Gabe Vincent giving you 15 points. Max Strus, 19 points, 10 rebounds. Jimmy doing what he does. PJ, team high 7 assists. Bam Adebayo playing really good defense. It was just like a balanced effort. And their defense was incredible.
Yeah.
When you limit Philly quality offense, especially when Embiid and Harden are in there, the 36% shooting, you did an incredible job defensively. And yeah, the offense was very good in the half court, in transition. They got a lot of baskets in transition, semi-transition. It helped to kind of open things up for them offensively in the half court. But their defense was really the story of the night. And we've talked about it on this podcast, David, a lot. They're going to go as far as the defense takes them.
Yeah.
That's the reason they're a title contender, is because they can consistently shut down teams. And they could always depend on that. So whenever they have a decent offensive game, they're almost like guaranteed to win because their defense is always good.
Weirdly, like Game 4, even though that was obviously the one that was like kind of the panic-inducing one, kind of like that's the evidence of like what this team is, because they did not shoot it well at all, and they probably still should have won that game if James Harden doesn't have like I said, if he doesn't have a flashback to 4 years ago. Game 3, they shot terribly, and
it was a blowout loss, but it was still, I think it was a 20-point win, I think, for Philly. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like a 3-point game, like late in the first quarter.
They held the Sixers to 99.
Their offense was just atrocious. Like, I think there was like the 0 percentile in half court offense or something that game. Like, it was awful. So that's kind of why that happened. And it was a 20-point loss, but it felt like more like a 10-point loss, really. Philly just kind of pulled away at the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think, again, we know what this Heat team is. We know what they do best. And that was on display tonight in Game 5.
Yeah, if they shoot it like that, they obviously can get to the NBA Finals. And the thing with the Heat is they don't need to shoot it like that 7 times. They just need to shoot it like that 4 times, basically. Because like you said, when they defend like the way they defended tonight and really throughout the series, I mean, you look at Sixers game by game, 92, 103, 99, 116, 85. And obviously those first 2 were without Joel Embiid. Game 3 was, Joel Embiid was clearly not, he's still probably not back to 100%. But the leap he took from game 3 to game 4 was pretty significant, I thought. But yeah, I mean, 120-85, that is a blowout for this stage of the playoffs where the narrative had really flipped, and it's I've been covering the Panthers series also, and it's funny the way these 7-game series can go where Heat up 2-0 in control, then tied 2-2. It's game 5 kind of feels like it can kind of decide it. Really felt kind of going into tonight that it was close to a toss-up series, and now the Heat back fully in control, and not just because they have that 3-2 lead and just need to win one of the next 2, but because of the way they played. And again, you wrote it. I mean, we keep going back to it, but like you wrote it on, I guess your advance for game 5 was just like, if they shoot it, they're gonna be fine. Like there was no sense of panic on the Heat side of things.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously there's layers to it, right? I mean, I know Philly's done a pretty good job of staying home on the Heat shooters. They've really tried to play Jimmy one-on-one, which Jimmy's really taken advantage of in this series.
Awesome. We're gonna have to talk about him in a little
Jimmy's
bit.
been incredible. And even Doc said after the game tonight in game 5, I know this is gonna come out Thursday, but on Tuesday night in game 5, Doc said we might have to make some adjustments on Jimmy that we don't want to have to make, but we might have to make them anyway. And he didn't say it, but you could guess that that's doubling Jimmy. And that should open up the shooters. But yeah, even with the Sixers staying home on the shooters, taking away corner threes, which the Heat shot more than anybody in the NBA this season, they still miss a lot of shots they should have made. They might not. They probably didn't have the quality looks to shoot 40% from 3 in those games, but to shoot 20% over 2 span and make 7 threes.
It's an outlier.
It's an outlier. I think they had shot under 25% from 3, like in 6 games or 5 games this entire season, and 2 of them were in games 3 and 4. It's an outlier. And they were still in those games. I know Philly pulled away in both of them at the end, but entering the fourth quarter, they were in those games. They were possession games. If the Heat shoot just to their average, they probably win one of those, and this series is over. So Philly's a hostile environment. It's very loud. Take it from me. I was there the last 2 games. Extremely loud. The PA is as loud as any arena in the NBA. Like Barry Jackson, our colleague, was with me. He was thinking about getting earplugs, and he was like holding his ears every time.
Do you think it was louder than the F1 races?
I don't know. You're gonna. I mean, I can't. I wasn't there. You're gonna have to tell me about that. But it is very loud, and it's a really tough environment to play in. But I think if the Heat just shoot the ball well, we know that they can beat this team. I think they're a better, deeper team than Philly right now, especially with Embiid. Doesn't seem like he's 100%. Playing with a thumb injury, has the mask. James Harden has had 1 good quarter in the series, but he hasn't been great. So I think that he have a shot to close it out in Game 6. But then again, every time in this series, it seems like the road team just doesn't shoot the ball well. If that trend continues, then we might see a Game 7. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little closer than the Heat would like it for comfort, I would say right now. I'm sure they feel like they're they feel like they're too much better than the Sixers team for it to go potentially 7 games. And obviously we're staring down that possibility. But at the same time, like you said, I mean, I honestly don't remember if we talked about this on the podcast last week or if it's just something that a conversation I had in real life. Like the Sixers basically have like 4.5 good players, and that's tough.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, James Harden, Maxey, Embiid, Harris, and then I guess Green on some nights, right?
Yeah, like Green, Thibault,
But even Thibault, he's been an offensive liability this entire series. He's a great defensive player.
That's why I say half great defensively, horrible offensively.
Yeah.
But that's the Heat just have the horses in a way. The difference in this series is always going to be, can the Sixers stars, and mostly Embiid, but obviously James Harden won them a game, which we knew was that was part of the calculus of what can make this series difficult for the Heat. But the question is going to be, can the Sixers stars overcome the Heat's depth? And so far, the Heat's stars have outplayed the Sixers stars, and that makes it again, like I said, it feels like they should probably be up more than the feels like this series probably should be over, like we've said a couple times here, but
Yeah.
It would be surprising now if the Heat can't finish this off the way they're playing. Obviously, it's 2-game sample size. All you need is 2 bad shooting nights, which we've
That's the
seen
problem.
impossible, and all of a sudden you're going home. But the way they look tonight, the way they have looked for the majority of this series, they're in good shape.
Yeah, that's the issue, and that was the issue entering Game 5. I thought, like, I was confident that over a large sample, the math would even out for the Heat, but when you get to the playoffs, like, there is no large sample.
Right.
So
And
if you
that's the
have
problem when you
3
play
bad
this
shooting
style
games,
the Heat do, where your second best, like, creating scorer who can create for himself is Tyler Hero, who, was not very good in those games in Philly.
Yeah.
That's as much of, we talk about the shooting, but as much of it right now is, they're playing with like 25% of Kyle Lowry or whatever. He, obviously didn't play tonight, but and didn't play in Game 3, and in Game 4 he was.
He played in Games 3 and Game 4. He missed the first
Sorry,
two.
played in Game 3. Yes, played in Game 3 and Game 4. Did not play well though. He's nowhere, not even 50%. It doesn't look like right now. You're the only other guy other than Jimmy Butler who can like get his shot whenever is Tyler Hero, and as good as he was this year, he's still the fourth best player on the floor most of the time. Like,
don't forget about Victor now. Victor Oladipo.
Victor Oladipo too, but he's pretty rough in Game 4.
Yeah, he was. He's had some
rough.
Like
we're talking about 2 guys who are, I don't want to say like heat check guys because Tyler Hero is better than like a Deion Waiters like stereotype, obviously, but they're not all stars, right? Like it becomes tricky when you're talking about non all stars trying to be your creators come playoff time.
And the Sixers have done a really good job of taking Hero out ever since his big Game 2.
Yeah.
They're trapping him on every pick and roll, getting the ball out of his hands. And I think tonight you saw him kind of just not like succumb to what the Sixers are giving him, but he just kind of accepted what the defense gave him and took 8 shots. And I think most of them came like in the fourth quarter. Like, he really wasn't that involved because he was just making the right play out of the trap, which is kind of what you have to do at this point if you're him, right? Especially when you have good players around you. So he's not going to have a big game with the way they're defending him. And he tried to force things in Philly, did not go well. And tonight we saw a different Tyler of, I'm not going to take 15 shots, but I'll get my other guys involved, create open shots for them, and use what Philly's doing to me against them. So right now, this series, the way they're defending him, is not designed for Tyler to have big nights. And that's just the way it is at this moment. I mean, that's a sign of respect for Tyler, and that should help the offense. But yeah, I mean, Jimmy, we have to get into Jimmy because he's been phenomenal. Like,
I mean, he is bubble Jimmy. Like, he's like it feels like there's always like one star level player who like the regular season doesn't do them justice. The playoff Rondo thing was a thing forever, right? I'm trying to think of some of the other guys who probably would have been in that category. Like, even like LeBron, obviously, who's wouldn't be an MVP, but then was always like once the playoff come, like he's an extreme example, was very obviously the best player in the league. Jimmy Butler's that guy right now where he's great. He's an all-star in the regular season, deservingly so. But he is, we do not see Jimmy Butler until we get to May, basically. And right now he is, 33, I think, in Game 3, 40 in Game 4, and he was maybe even better tonight when he had 23 and 9 or whatever.
He just controlled the game tonight.
Yeah, controlled the games. Again, like, the reason that the Heat are in control of the series is because he's outplayed Joel Embiid. And obviously there are reasons for that, but right now there are not like I remember when we came out of the bubble, it was like, oh, is Jimmy Butler a top 10 player in the league? Like, we're back to that right now, where there are not 10 guys across the NBA right now better than him. I don't think. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but
he's averaging 28 points and 54% shooting.
Yeah,
8 rebounds, 6 assists, and his advanced metrics.
He's not a big man. Like, he's shooting a lot of mid range. Like,
a lot of tough twos. He takes a lot of tough twos. 538. I know some people aren't into this stuff. But you look at all the metrics, he's been the best player in the playoffs so far. Raptor, he's number 1. John Morant's 2. Chris Paul 3. Giannis 4. Wins above replacement. Jimmy's number 1. Jimmy's number 1. Jaws 2 again. Chris Paul 3. Giannis 4. So it's. I mean, the advanced metrics say it. The eyes tell us like he's been. I mean, people say he's been one of the best players. You could argue he's been the best player in the playoffs up until this point. And that's really impressive for a guy. What?
I'll take John Morant, but
I mean, Ja's number 2, and I mean,
he's in. I mean, that's just right. So you see,
yeah,
John,
I mean, it's
so you know,
I mean,
it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's close. It's close. You can't say enough about Jimmy. We talk about Bubble Jimmy a lot. He's brought it back in the playoffs, and he's elevated his game. It's impressive that he's consistent. I mean, he wasn't able to do that against Milwaukee last year.
I was gonna say it's so funny that
yeah,
last year he was an absolute disaster in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it's like it never happened.
Right. It's like it was like just like a blip in the radar. Like doesn't.
I mean, that year was so weird. Obviously, it was the COVID.
Yeah, guys were just tired and burned out.
You missed a lot of time, and you saw all the teams that were in the bubble, right? Got knocked out in the. I think 3 of the 4 got knocked out in the first round, right? Who were the conference finalists the year before? But it was so weird because he was just nowhere close to the same guy, and it's. I mean, it's weird to talk about load management or whatever in the playoffs, but you do wonder. You just last year, you just knew they didn't have a shot, right? Even if everything went perfectly well, they were not going to beat Brooklyn, they were not going to beat Milwaukee, probably weren't going to beat Phoenix or whoever came out of the West. But the way he is playing right now is like it was in the bubble because he believed that team was the best team in the league and believes they should have won a championship that year. And you can tell he feels the same way about this team. Yeah.
And to your argument about John Morant is great, but this takes into account defense too.
Right? That's true. Yeah. And Jimmy's been great.
Jimmy's been great defensively. Ja, he's not a bad defender, but that's not his strength. So yeah, I think, this my feature will already be out, but I am going to write a Jimmy story. As my advance for Game 6, kind of highlighting all these points. The Heat gave him that extension, and people kind of did a double take when they gave him that money at this age. But he's proving that he, it might not be a great deal in 3 years, but what he's giving you right now, he's a top 10 player for sure. And
could he be the next Chris Paul? Right when Chris Paul got that extension, everyone was like, "That's a terrible deal," and Chris Paul is a better player than Jimmy Butler, right? Chris Paul is, top 5 point guard of all time or whatever. And Jimmy Butler is a Hall of Famer, probably. I mean, definitely, I guess the way the NBA Hall of Fame works, but they're different tiers on that all-time hierarchy, obviously. But couldn't Jimmy, the same way that Chris Paul, you cannot measure his contributions based on his scoring and all that kind of stuff. And he, I actually turned that game off, so I don't know what's happening right now. But he's been obviously up and down.
There was just an altercation.
He's been up and down in these playoffs. But he's gonna have you in the mix every year, and that is what Jimmy. It's a long time left on that contract. Maybe we're gonna be terribly wrong here because his game's not gonna age. Probably is you wouldn't look at him and think his game is gonna age as well as Chris Paul's game has. But it's possible that he's just the way that he. I think the way you described him as controlling the game, that's the similarity he has with Chris Paul. That stuff really, really matters in the playoffs. It's what makes LeBron so good in the playoffs. Yeah. It's what Giannis learned in the playoffs last.
When the game slows down, you need a guy you could give it to.
Right. And a guy who can slow the game down, right? It's that is that's what John Morant is going to have to learn to do. He's not going to be able to go 1,000,000 miles per hour all the time because it gets chaotic and you turn the ball over. It's been it's like the Warriors' Achilles, the one Achilles heel they had during their great run was they could get kind of erratic. Jimmy's going to slow it down. He's going to control the game, like you said, and he's going to be able to do that for the duration of that contract. Maybe he's not going to make those tough twos at the same rate, and he's not going to be as athletic, so he's not going to get to the rim as much, and his defense is going to slip. But he's always going to have that, everyone calm down, I got this. And
Yeah,
that doesn't mean that. And by I got this, I don't mean I'm going to take the shot. I mean I'm going to make the right play, and that is what he's always going to have.
it reminds me a little bit of Dwayne Wade, and the way his game aged, where he became more of a post player. Because Jimmy has that post up game where he doesn't need that athleticism to, drive in for dunks or get past the defender. Like he could set up in the post and score the fadeaway or the drop step, or like he's good. He's gotten a lot better there, and he's a good passer. He's obviously like shown an ability to hit threes now. It's at a high clip. I mean, what is he shooting from three now in this playoffs? He's shooting 37% on
Is that the
threes
point
on
where like
four attempts a game.
Obviously, 37% is like good, not incredible.
On 4 attempts a game for him.
It's at the point where every
impressive.
time he takes one, I kind of assume it's gonna go in. Because I'm like, why would he be shooting that if it wasn't gonna go in?
So in the bubble in the playoffs, he shot 35% on threes on 2 attempts a game. He's shooting 37% on 4 attempts a game this postseason. That's more than double the volume, and he's shooting 3 percentage points higher. I just don't even know how to explain that, but
it is kind of inexplicable. We tried to explain it either last week or the week before, and I came away from that being like, that was a terrible reason that I came up with.
Yeah, I mean, I think like someone's pointing out that he's taking more set shots now, which might be an investment he made.
The clearest reason the percentage goes way up is because his only threes in the regular season are either he's like tired and doesn't want to try to get to the rim on a possession, or like desperation. And obviously a lot of this is more in the flow. But there's another way that, like I said, when bubble Jimmy, playoff Jimmy is a different guy than regular season Jimmy. Like that's part of it too. For whatever reason, it's part of it.
Yeah. No, it's pretty incredible. Like I didn't obviously Jimmy's a great player. I expect him to be the best player for this team in the playoffs, but what he's done so far has been, either he's the best player in the playoffs or he's top 5 right now,
right,
as far as players this postseason. So hats off to him, and I still feel like he's still so overlooked. Even though he had that bubble run, and even though, I feel like people respect his game a lot more now ever since he joined the Heat because of what he's been able to do there, and he's had his best seasons of his career there. But he's a top 10 player, and I think people forget that sometimes.
Yeah, he's a top 10 player come playoff time, I think. Like, if you're doing a redraft, right, like if you're ranking your top 10 based on, like, who do I want for the remainder of these playoffs, like, you'd go Giannis, you'd go Tatum, probably go Steph, you'd go Morant, probably go Chris Paul.
Right.
You'd go, I'm probably forgetting some guys.
Only one guy is number 1 in the Raptor in 538.
Only one, yeah. You go Luka probably, although, like I said, I turned that game off, so I'm not sure if they're totally toast right now. But, I've named 6 guys, and, there's not another obvious one there.
No.
Jimmy might be 7 on that list.
I actually misspoke. In War, Jimmy's 1, John Morant's 2, Chris Paul's 3, Giannis 4. In Raptor, Jimmy's 1, Luka's 2, Ja's 3, Chris Paul's 4. So, Luka, Jimmy, Ja have been statistically the best players in the playoffs. Yeah. And one of those guys, you kind of splitting hairs, but bottom line is Jimmy's been elite in the postseason.
All right, Anthony, I know you wanted to talk about DJ Khaled.
Yeah, that's really the highlight of the game. I just really wanted to get done talking about basketball so we could discuss that.
Well, yeah, I saw him on Sunday in the paddock area at the Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's consistently at all the Heat games, at least for the last few weeks. He's been at every one with his son.
Yeah, he was he just didn't see, was he just rocking a plain white tee? Was that his uniform?
No, I think he was wearing something more colorful today. I'm not sure. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. But
I saw him at the Miami Grand Prix. He walks out of the building that houses all the team offices or the F1 offices, and it was also where the media room was. Strolls out, basically, I'm sure they were nicer than this, but it was basically he was wearing and one black gym shorts and a white T-shirt. It was great. It was everything I wanted to see from DJ Khaled. Posing for pictures with guys. He was the one celebrity out there. It was posing for pictures with people. Him and the Ringers, Kevin Clark, were the only 2 people I saw posing for pictures.
Did you see what happened with him and Spo? Did you see that moment?
No, I didn't.
I'm gonna send you the link right now,
Okay.
so you could see the picture. But I will describe it to the listeners right now, even though they will probably have seen it when they listen to this. But he basically gets up, and this like a ball goes out of bounds, I think, and he gets up from his courtside
Oh
chair,
yeah.
walks over to like he's gonna check into a game, like he walks over to the scorer's table, then faces the crowd and like tries to pump up the crowd like by raising his hands up and like asking for noise, and then walks over to Spo's like by DJ Khaled's seat and goes behind him and just like gives him a quick shoulder rub, and then just sits back down. It was the weirdest thing out of nowhere. Like I don't know. I guess DJ Drake did that with Nick Nurse a few years back. I guess during their run. So he might have been just trying to recreate that moment with
Yeah, is
Spo.
it like the magic touch?
I don't know.
You need a pop star to touch your coach and bless
The,
him.
the crowd obviously loved it.
Is Khaled a Heat guy? Like, is he
Oh,
like
he's a Heat guy through and
he
through.
is? He's
Yeah,
not just like an NBA guy who just like
no,
okay.
he's all about the Heat. All about the Heat. Yeah, he's a known Heat fan. Um, and I just my only thought like takeaway from that was A, like what just happened, and B, if that was anybody else, they would have gotten kicked out of the game so
Right. If
fast.
it was like yeah, there's
But
like
because it was
10
him, it was
people
like
on
everyone just
Earth
laughed.
that could have done that.
What?
There's like 10 people on Earth that could have done that.
Yeah, right.
Like
So
Khaled, Dwayne Wade, I don't even know who else, but those are two of the 10.
yeah, it was just so strange and unexpected, but a viral moment. And Spo was asked about it after the game and just kind of laughed it off and said like usually I don't really get involved in that, but it was funny. Like I didn't expect it. I didn't realize what he was doing until it was too late. And Max Strus actually, I guess he was the one inbounding the ball and like
Yeah, I saw Khaled hand him the ball.
yeah, and Max like laughed and it's like, a lot of things have just been happening to me for me lately. Like it's so cool. Like he was just like just honored to be part of the moment, which is kind of funny.
He's very much in that Duncan from like 3 years ago mode right now.
You're just
That
like enjoying
is,
everything that's happening to
yeah,
him right now.
yeah.
Yeah, so it was, just a very Miami moment during the Heat playoff run.
Speaking of Duncan, let's finish up there because
Yeah.
he got in the game tonight. In the it was at the end of the first
Yeah,
quarter.
5 seconds left in
Came
the first quarter.
and they
Yeah.
were like had a set play. I didn't get the ball there because there was a foul, but yeah, we saw him. Obviously, that was people. The Fire Spo crowd was all over Spo on Sunday because Duncan was sitting on the bench when they were like one of 127 from three. Were you? Well, let's start there. One, were you surprised we didn't see Duncan in Game 4? And I don't know. Are we gonna see more? Like I don't know. Like just where are we at on the Duncan situation?
Um, I've been on the Duncan train all year. I was
I was
surprised.
surprised we didn't see him in Game 4.
I was surprised he was even out of the rotation of this series, to be
Right.
honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
But
I was
even
like,
once it got to where the point it got, I was like, give it a shot. But
yeah, but I I do want to say this because I've kind of stayed out of the conversation on Twitter. I find it really funny how quickly the narrative changes. Because like all season, people have been calling for Duncan to be benched and like not
I
to
know
play
it's
ever
so funny.
again.
I was thinking the same thing.
And like for 48 hours, like now he's the solution to like all of the Heat's problems. Like everybody wants him to play. Like why he's fire
I
Spo.
get it. Like I get it. Like give it a shot. See what happens. But it
Yeah,
is very funny.
it's just funny how quick, like how funny, like everyone just wants a guy who's not playing to play. Like it was
Right.
Victor
It's the
Oladipo for
backup quarterback thing, right? The
yeah,
most popular guy is the backup quarterback.
right, right, and I think Duncan probably should have played. I'm not saying he shouldn't have, but
Yeah,
it's just
I would have played
conversation
him.
stages. Yeah, I mean just to see. I mean you're not making threes, like just put him in there for a few minutes, see if it provides a spark.
Yeah, Harden's cooking
Um,
you anyway.
yeah,
Like no matter who's on him.
and I understand the reason they're not playing him is obviously defense.
Yeah.
And with the way Philly plays, like they would hunt out Duncan. Harden
Yeah,
would
we said it
hunt
at the
out
very
Duncan.
beginning of the series.
Yeah,
This was not a good matchup for him.
yeah. So I get it. I
So
get
the
it.
Atlanta series, fine. Maybe whoever they play in the next round, he'll be back in or have a chance to play at least. This was not the series for him.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe against Milwaukee and Boston against those defenses that really are great at protecting the paint, you might need that extra space and
Yeah.
have to play Duncan. But he played him tonight, 13 minutes, made 1 of 3 threes. I think, especially with Kyle out, and from what I heard, and this is not like shocking news, but think the expectation is Kyle's gonna miss at least the rest of the series. So with him out, expected to be out, we won't have an official word on that for a few days. But I think Duncan will play. He'll get some minutes. Tonight Max was hot. He made 4 threes for 19 points. So he played most of the minutes, but on a night Max is off, we could see maybe Duncan play 20 plus minutes in a game in this series. So yeah, I mean, good for Duncan. I know it's been tough on him. Ira Winderman from the Sun Sentinel and I spoke with him after practice in between games 3 and 4. Taking it like professional, but you could tell like it's not easy. A, you want to play, and B, like he just had a big contract, and that weighs on guys, whether they admit it or not. That weighs on guys, especially a guy like Duncan, who's been very vulnerable about his kind of imposter syndrome. I know he kind of hates that now, like that he gave that up because people always point to that and go back to that with him, but it's kind of who he is, right? It's true. So you could tell it's weighing on him, but I still think, and we've talked about this a lot, like he's gonna have his moments. There's gonna be a need for him at some point during this playoff run.
Yeah,
and he's gonna
we had one of them in first game of the entire playoffs.
That's the crazy thing. Yeah, he's ever since then. I don't know. I think he's made like 2 or 3 threes the entire playoffs since that game when he made like 8 or 9 in a game. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's gonna play big minutes the rest of the series, but I think he will play. However long the series goes. Whether it's only one game in Game 6 or both games in Game 6 and 7, especially with Kyle out, kind of opening up some more minutes.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised? Lowry really, especially in Game 4, kept going out of the game, going back to the locker room. But didn't they say it was probable to return as he right as he stepped back on the court? Yeah. It was a weird, I don't know, were you surprised that he kept kind of gutting through that? And is there? I'm sure they're not. They wouldn't say one way or the other, but he re-aggravated in that game. Does it sound like?
Yeah, it seems like he re-aggravated it. I mean, Spo was asked today if he made it worse. Right. He said not exactly, but just, this is just that type of injury where you could tweak it again very quickly. Yeah. And that's what Kyle did. And it's weird because the Heat are so cautious with injuries.
Right. It's kind of surprising. Yeah.
I'm not saying they're rushing him back because who knows? Maybe he was fine and just it was a freak thing where he just tweaked it again. He took 2 weeks off. So it's not like he came back quickly. But actually, I think they're going to be even more cautious this time because after what happened. So if he misses 2 weeks again or 3 weeks, I mean, he could miss most of the Eastern Conference Finals if that's the case. So we'll see, when he'll be able to come back. But Gabe Vincent might be the Heat starting point guard here for the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's probably been the most kind of under-discussed storyline of the playoffs right now because of the Embiid injury, obviously, to start this series. The Middleton injury in the Milwaukee, every one of these series has one, it feels like. Obviously, Ja in the Memphis Golden State series. I guess Dallas, Phoenix, everyone's pretty much healthy, although obviously Booker, at the start of the series, there was concern about his hamstring. But yeah, the Lowry one, because he's, not an all-star anymore, a little past his prime, and because of the Embiid thing, it's kind of overshadowed. And the fact that the Heat might survive it and get to the conference.
I was gonna say, the fact that he just keep winning, they're 5-0 without him in the playoffs. That's a big
part of it, yeah. But when you're thinking about potentially, that is a massive injury if we get to the conference finals, and the Heat have to play significant time without him. Especially if they're going up against Boston. Although Boston's got some injuries too, so everyone's banged up. Obviously, the Lowry one is big. Not as big as some other ones, but kind of an underrated one, I think, right now, as we're talking about the greater landscape of the postseason picture.
Yeah, I mean, he re-aggravated on Sunday. There's probably a better chance that the conference finals start on Tuesday,
right? This
upcoming Tuesday. It's either Sunday or Tuesday, but, it looks like that Boston Bucks series is probably going to go 7.
Or this one, or right? Isn't it if any of the
Phoenix
three,
or Dallas?
Any of the 3 go to 7,
or even if he goes to 7, it'll start Tuesday. So that'll give him a week and 2 days. I mean, I don't know if that's enough. I guess we'll see. For him to come back. But I don't know. I just wouldn't be surprised if he has to miss time in the conference finals just because of him missing 2 weeks and then re-aggravating it again.
Yeah,
aggravating it again. It's hard to imagine he's going to come back quicker this time.
Yeah. All right, I think we can wrap things up there. You can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony_Chiang. Check out his Jimmy Butler story. Check out all of his coverage of the Heat. He will be in Philly for Game 6 as the Heat will try to move on to the conference finals for the second time in 3 years. You can follow me on Twitter at DBWilson2. I will be, I guess Panthers Game 5 will be done by then. I will be in the nation's capital on Friday.
Traveling?
For Game 6. I am
Nice.
traveling for Game 6. Either going to be a must-win for Florida or a chance for them to get to the second round of the playoffs for the first time since 1996, which is a long time.
Wow.
Other than that,
was also the one a first-round series?
96. When they went to the Stanley Cup Finals, they have not won a playoff series since they got to the Stanley Cup Finals in 96. So very different last 3 decades for them than the Heat have had.
Yeah, things look shaky there for the Panthers. I must say.
I mean, it's the same way that things felt like they just swung this weekend for the Heat. I mean, the Panthers, and it's funny because that 2-1, when you're down 2-1, if you're the team that was the higher seed and you're down 2-1, this is the same as true in the NBA going into that second road game. Like it's full panic mode, but then if you win, it's like, all right, we got home.
We're back.
Of course, yeah. It's like if you lose, it's like, oh my god, you're down 3-1. Right. Like you've totally screwed this up. But if you tie it up, it's like, all right, we're good. We got home
court. We have home
court
advantage. Yeah. It changed in a matter of minutes. I'll say that.
Yeah, very much. So yeah, you can follow me for coverage there. I don't know, just there's a lot of stuff going on in Miami sports these days. The Marlins keep losing by exactly 1 run. I think they're going to lose by more tonight. I haven't looked at that score in a little while.
I saw a crazy stat, like their 9th inning ERA is like astronomical or something like that.
That's what happens if you literally don't acquire any relief pitchers.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem they need to address.
Kind of by design, but that's not a design you want to design.
No, that's not a design you want.
No. All right, we're rambling now. Thanks as always for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week.